Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. Shep Hyken here. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio, and we are moving back into the hospitality world. We have Ronn Nicolli, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Resorts World Las Vegas, which is one of the largest casinos and resorts, hosting all types of events, conferences, and just people going on vacation. And I'm excited today to be talking about the hospitality mentality. Now, before we get into the interview, I have a quick announcement. If you've got an amazing customer service story that you would like to share or a question that you would like me to answer, please reach out to me on any of the social media channels. I'm pretty much everywhere. And if you use, or if it is a question, use the hashtag #AskShep, and I'll answer the question right there in the social channel, on this show, or in my newsletter. And you can subscribe to that newsletter at www.hyken.com. It is totally free. I include a cartoon every week. And when you get the newsletter, you also get my annual customer service and experience research filled with findings, stats, facts, and articles that will help you create a more amazing experience for your employees and your customers. All right, let's jump into the interview with Ronn Nicolli. Ronn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Resorts World Las Vegas, and you think about Las Vegas, the entertainment capital of the world, you think of plush and incredible experiences, hotels, casinos, and you are the Chief Marketing Officer of one of the more recognizable names out there. So let's start with there. You have had 20 years of nightlife executive ownership and experience. Let's get your background a little bit.
Yeah, no, look, my education was in marketing and advertising, and coming out to Las Vegas, I did not really see anything from, call it, an entry-level perspective that was making sense. And that's when I made a pivot into nightlife. And there was a lot of opportunities that time. Nightlife was in this emerging period. Bottle service was a relatively new thing. And it seemed to be kind of all the craze. And it opened up a lot of doors for me. And again, it eventually, led me back to the position of being a primary marketer, obviously for a property. But it was definitely an interesting journey, and one that I don't think I could have imagined how I kind of took this path, because it definitely wasn't a straight line.
Yeah, well, you've worked with great brands like Wynn and Palms Casino Resort, and now over at Resorts World. Now, you have a campaign right now called Rule the World, and this is Volume 2. So I'd love to know, number one, what's different between Volume 1 and Volume 2? And you're already thinking about Volume 3, and you've just rolled this thing out as of like yesterday as we're talking.
But, look, when we really sat there and started thinking about the creative process, I'm going on almost 3 years now as the CMO of Resort World. And, creatively, I think we're second to none. I think that we understand that right now it's about engaging with the consumer, creating consumer curiosity. And I think creative content is key in doing that. We understand that so much of what we digest as human beings right now is happening through short form media. It's happening through social media channels. And the ability to put these stylized videos and images out there to create a consumer opportunity capture point is highly important. And it's something that, look, I had a vision, and this vision's kind of carried over through my career in building an amazing creative and multimedia team in-house. And it was something that ownership and leadership at Resort World supported. And again, that gave me the ability to start thinking about these campaigns.
And I think the point you're trying to make here is that you're telling a story with your content and your video, a compelling story. By the way, people that are listening to this, I just want to point out that the hospitality mentality is perhaps one of the most important attributes or personality traits that anybody you're hiring, and either strategically thinking about the customer experience or somebody that's on the front line who's actually doing the experience and creating the service and whatever interaction you're having with the customer. I think this is a very, very important point that Ronn is making. So you're telling this story, and I think telling the story is what gets people to start thinking. And by the way, some of that story could be from the archives, history. It earned you a reputation for something that's great, that makes people want to come back again and again.
No, absolutely. And again, you nailed it right there. It is at its roots, it's storytelling, right? And when we set out to do Rule the World One, it really came to us the one night when me and the vice president of marketing, Nick Martini, were walking around the property, and we had happened to have a boxing event going on property. We had a country artist in the theater, and we had a world-renowned EDM artist in the nightclub. And it was around 11 p.m. And as there was movement out of the theater and boxing, and people were moving in to start experiencing nightlife, we looked around the property, and there was this beautiful collaboration and mesh of people. And to me, that was Rule the World. That was Resort World. That's who we are as a brand. Is it's essentially it's a welcoming property. It's a welcoming environment. There's experiences really for anyone to engage in. And the challenge from that night came: how do you bottle that in to something digestible that's 15, 30, or 60 seconds? And that's how Rule the World, our first commercial, actually was born, was out of one night, one walk around, one mission, and one goal. And that became Rule the World.
Wow. And now volume two, what's different?
Volume two is just a continuation. We brought back some of the main characters from volume one. We're continuing to tell the story. Volume one was a collection of different vignettes and shots that were around the property that had an aspirational consumer nature of storytelling. And volume two now sees us in the Palace, which is one of the more premium rooms in all of Las Vegas. And now has that same group of people in this environment interacting. There's some new characters that have come into play. And again, it's just showing everyone having a great time interacting, sharing with each other. And again, the reality was we wanted to condense this down to a single space. We wanted to continue to tell that great storytelling from volume one, but now put it into an environment that was singular, but still had the authenticity that we got out of the first commercial.
And volume three, which you said you're already working on it and you just released volume two. By the way, therein is another lesson. When you're done, it's not done. It's just part of the journey.
Oh, absolutely. Look, we will continue to tell the story of Resort World, and in doing so, freshening up and evolving the creative is always part of it. It's like you look back at volume one, you see things you would have done differently. Volume two released last night. It's live now, and there's things I probably would change if we were releasing it in 2 days from now. So, volume three, I think we're going to continue to tell the story. Probably going to romanticize it a little bit. This is going to be shot. Actually, there's a different approach on this one. We're going to actually shoot this over 10 months and then release it around the same time next year. So where volume one was shot over about 7 days, same thing with volume two. This one, we're going to essentially create this long lead of storytelling where each month we're going to release a different series of the video. And then you'll get the collective video at the end of the year.
Very interesting. So I like that. I can tell you from experience, I'm a professional speaker and author, and I create a demo video for my services. This is the latest and greatest of Shep on Stage, and it looks fantastic. And I send it out, and about 3 days later, I go, you know what? I'd really like to change this. I'd really like to change. And we just have to have the mindset that nothing is ever going to be perfect once we really drill into it. But getting it out there, if it's 80 to 90%, maybe that's good enough, maybe not. But you get the idea that there's always the opportunity to improve. Even Walt Disney used to say that, the whole idea of the customer experience or the guest experience is a never-ending journey. There's really no end to it. There's always going to be a way to improve it. Now, let's look at your systems. We'll call it the hospitality experience. From the time you decide you want to go, make a reservation, you check in, and by the way, mobile check-in, very powerful. I don't know if I ever walked into your resort and experienced this, but I know I have at others, and that is, and I know specifically the one I'm going to, because I speak at this event year after year, and I keep asking, can you give me the VIP check-in? Because I'm going to come in the middle of the day, and there's going to be a minimum of a 1 hour wait for me to get to the front of the line. Chances are to be told my room's not ready anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what do you do? I mean, I'm just telling you, that's a guest service pain point of virtually any type of organization, hotel. But I think we can start using that as a metaphor for looking at the pain points and fixing them, ideally before they happen.
No, absolutely. And again, to your point, the mobile check-in and the ability to kind of pre-register and be pre-prepared for check-in, I think is very important. Look, we live in a a customer journey world right now where we almost constantly want instant gratification in that sense, right? I mean, think about it. We can pretty much do every one of the needed journeys from our phone now, from calling a car to ordering food to booking any type of experience, and then the seamlessness of it. And again, that's the goal, right? Our goal is, if I'm watching what I want this journey to be from Resort World as we continue to perfect this process, I want you to be able to get in the car from the airport, essentially check into your room, have your key on your phone, get dropped off, and essentially be able to bypass, if there is a line, for maybe a non-tech savvy consumer, and go right up to your room. And I think that is the goal that we're kind of striding for. And, when you say that, sometimes I get, call it purist, right? That believe that hospitality needs to remain in the silo of the peer-to-peer interaction. And I say it can be both, right? I think the service that we're providing and creating connected experiences is always going to have the foundation of incredible hospitality touch points, but also really realistically showing up to the property is the first stage in storytelling, right? For me, it's always aligning that there's a parallel between where the marketing lives and what the interpretation of the marketing is when the consumer arrives. So the last thing you want is someone's first impression to be waiting in line for an hour.
Yeah. And I was actually headed straight to the point of, do you feel technology's taking over to a point where the personal interaction that you have, especially from a hospitality or relationship building standpoint, disappears? But what you're doing is you're saying, where are the friction points? What can I do to give my guest an option as to whether or not they want to go digital or whether they want to call or I'm sorry, go to the front desk, wait in line. And what made me say the words call is because I'm thinking about the digital experience of customer support, of saying, I get my information right now if I choose to go digital, or I can go on hold for 10, 15 minutes, being told my call is very important to me, and then having to wait for somebody 10 or 15 minutes to finally pick it up. And I think, given the option, I think people would say, if you ask them first, would they rather talk to a human or use digital support? We know from our research, over 70% of the people say, I'd rather talk to somebody. But when you ask them, would you want your answer now or in 10 minutes? Guess what they say? Now. So there's this, we've got to educate that guest on how to use the best tools to streamline their experience, and then take advantage of the interactions that we have with our customers and guests, so that we can build a relationship that seems more human. So it's a combination of the two.
It's weird though. Like, some of the times I always tell this joke to people. Sometimes I feel a little bit like the Wizard of Oz. And what I mean is, so many times now people don't pick up the phone and will communicate through text or, social media DMs or emails. And there's a lot of people that I have had come and I've hosted in Resort World that I've never physically met. And that, to me, that's something I'm trying to correct, because I do think sometimes that it's become so easy to create the experiences for somebody that I don't necessarily need to meet them, but at this phase I want to meet them, because it almost feels like I've set up their entire weekend and have not actually got to meet them in person.
It would be very cool if the chief marketing officer of a major organization company like Resort World Las Vegas would walk up to my table and say, by the way, I knew you were going to be eating here. I just want to stop by and thank you. Just the tiniest touch point. I think that speaks volumes for the way you're thinking. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about how you think AI is driving the experience of a guest or a customer, and talk about the sustainability of hospitality and how that's important. And I think it crosses over, like I said earlier in this episode, to any type of business. We've been talking with Ronn Nicolli, the Chief Marketing Officer of Resorts World in Las Vegas, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Shep Hyken here with an offer that won't cost you a cent. You may have heard me talk about my annual customer service and experience research. We've surveyed thousands of customers matching the U.S. Census for age, gender, ethnicity, and geography, and we find out what customers love, hate, and want in a customer experience. What's the number one customer experience that almost every customer desires? What makes them come back? What makes them leave? Why won't they fill out surveys? What do they think of AI? Well, these questions and more are answered in the research, which, by the way, is sponsored this year by RingCentral, a leader in global communications. You can download the full report by going to hyken.com and clicking on the research tab at the top. Like I said, it won't cost you a cent, but it may make you or save you thousands and thousands of dollars when you understand your customers' expectations. Again, the website is www.hyken.com.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We are back on Amazing Business Radio talking with Ronn Nicolli, the CMO of Resorts World Las Vegas. Ron, I want to talk a little bit about, before I get into AI, and I do want to talk about AI, something that I have listed here as a comment that you made in the pre-work is that guests come to Las Vegas on vacation or they're there for a meeting and they crave value experiences over amenities. And I'd love for you to share with us what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, look, I think it comes down to when you think about value, right? Again, like I look at the fact that I'm a person that I don't mind spending money, right? And again, I don't want to overindulge, but I don't mind spending money, but I think there has to be value. I think there's a difference in something being expensive and something being valuable. And I think it all comes down to the memory that's essentially being created, right? The experience weighs highly. You know, one of the things that I've always said, look, when you look at my origin, right? I'm from a small town in Ohio called Youngstown. And I think about the fact that a 22-year-old Ronn Nicolli coming to Las Vegas was probably, putting 4 guys to a room, saving up for the entire year to experience 3 days, right? It wasn't.
I've done that.
Yeah, it wasn't the.
It was 6 guys in the room, by the way.
But that's my roots, right? And that's where I understand that guy is just as important from the responsibility of being in hospitality in Las Vegas to the whale that's coming out here that probably, look, he has a disposable income. This is one of probably 15 trips he's going to do this year. You have the ability to make ambassadors out of both, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the 22-year-old me who came out here and probably had a great time and probably went home and dramatically embellished what that weekend was. If I had a great time, I'm really letting someone know with an honest and genuine nature, right? We're not talking posting on Instagram. We're talking telling people in a real peer-to-peer experience and connection what I felt and the experience I had. And what I always say is there's a responsibility. Like, I feel I have a responsibility to the next generation of hospitality professionals in Las Vegas to explain to them the passing of the torch and the core and the reality of ensuring that you really are thinking from a hospitality mindset. I mean, this isn't a job. It really is a lifestyle. It's a passion.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, I always say the customer experience or customer service is not a department, it's philosophy, or not a strategy, it's a philosophy, and it needs to be ingrained in our brains. No doubt about that. So where I was going, I can get it. I understand it. Some people want the biggest room that you have in the hotel, and they are willing to pay dearly for it. However, if all you do is give them a big room with lousy furniture and a lumpy bed, they're not going to be happy no matter how big that room is. So the amenity versus the experience is what we're talking about. Years ago, hospitality, hotels decided, somebody real smart said, I'm going to put a newspaper, a free newspaper for any of the business people that are here. Just come in town after your, get up tomorrow morning on your way to get a cup of coffee, stop by, we'll give it to you. The guy across the street said, great idea. That's a great amenity. Let's make it better. Let's drop it off at the doorstep so they don't even have to come down. And it was like an amenity war going on. But at the end of the day, some of these things, these amenities become standard. They're no longer an amenity, they're an expectation. So where do you go to make the difference is in the experience, like you're talking about. Give them something they're going to remember. And I'm going to go a step further, is that most people, like yourself, Ron, when they got back to tell the experience, it's not that you exaggerated it, but you were so excited about it that it became better as you talked about it. And really, isn't that what any company would like to achieve, regardless of how serious their business is? If we talk about how well my lawyer takes care of me, I'm at a cocktail reception and somebody says, we're talking about, oh, my lawyer, and I go on and on about how great he is, how he responds so quickly, how he makes me feel like I'm the only client he has. How is that going to make the person with the other lawyer that doesn't act that way feel?
No, absolutely. And look, I had an old analogy that I used to throw around, and it was everybody wants the Vegas guy or the Vegas person, right? The going back to Ohio to, whatever industry you're in, and being able to tell that story in the office, to your point, now there's this reciprocant referral that comes into play. And that's really the spawning of it. Being out here now 25 years, I get a lot of calls, or I get a lot of emails, or Facebook, et cetera. And it's always a connected nature, right? Oh, my friend came out there and visited you 6 months ago, right? Like this network, it's this spider webbing effect. It's this of network that essentially occurs from ensuring that you're valuing the experience that you're providing for anyone coming to Las Vegas.
Yep. So I'll ask you the question. It's a music trivia question from an artist that is still alive, maybe not quite as relevant as she used to be. There's one hint. It's a she. And but what was the song? Who wrote and sang "Let's Give Them Something to Talk About"?
Oh, wow.
Generational difference here. Bonnie Raitt. But that's the theme song,
Yeah.
when they walk out of here. And by the way, let's give them something to talk about. Ought to be something good,
Yeah.
versus something bad. But isn't that what you're trying to achieve? Create the experience that lives beyond the experience.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I always say the unsolicited compliment means you're doing it the right way, right? And let's be honest, as human beings, if something bad happens or an experience falls short, we're in a digital era where there's so many platforms that you can talk about positive, but those same platforms allow the ability to talk about negative. And a lot of times the negative is what stands out. And sometimes that can create a negative voice for your brand, and I think that's one of the things that we always kind of discuss with team members and management and ownership is we need to ensure that everyone understands that they are representing a global brand. They're providing experiences, and we're here to ensure that those negative comments don't happen.
Yep.
And that's really by creating that positive experience.
Yep. All right. I want to jump to AI. I only want to spend a minute or so on it, but any ways that you're using AI to learn about your customers, create a better experience overall? How are you using it?
Look, AI is something I'm super interested in. As a marketer, look, when you go back and you think 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I always just say, email marketing was like fishing with dynamite, right? We essentially would throw the dynamite in the water. We'd throw out a big email, big number, and you'd see what floats to the surface. Realistically, I think AI and the way it is adapting is going to give us the ability to market in mass, but on a one-to-one basis, right? And I think that's the ultimate goal, is to have this intelligent learning when it comes to messaging to consumers. Look, everyone speaks a different marketing language, and that is the reality. Like, there's certain interests that you have that AI is going to give me the ability, when I'm curating messaging and visuals, that is going to be able to speak to you and create that type of visual curiosity need to take you down that consumer path. And that's why AI is exciting to me as a marketer, because I want to get to the point where if I'm sending out, 1 million emails through a deployment, that realistically each million of those messages have been recurated to speak to the consumer, and we have enough data on that consumer to put something out that's meaningful, that actually is creating that consumer action. And I think that's where AI is the missing link.
Yeah, very powerful thought there. Sustainability. This is something you're very proud of at the hotel. You're LEED Gold certified. And how important is this to your guest?
Well, I got to be honest, I love that you brought this up, because I think it's something we don't talk about enough. Normally, I throw this out here casually at lunches. It's kind of call it my party trick. I'll be eating lunch on property with someone, and I'll explain to them about the LEED certification. I'll explain to them about the air quality in the rooms, how the circulation of air throughout the property, how we have the highest air quality of any casino in Las Vegas. After I make those statements, they're like, you know what? I do notice it. I never thought about it. You don't smell smoke. You don't smell odd scents. Like, it does feel clean. It's like, as soon as you put it out there, it was subconscious, and the conversation brought it consciously into the awareness of the customer. And honestly, it's something that they end up talking about, because I've heard people tell other people about it after the conversation. So it is kind of like I'd call it my lunch and dinner party trick. Yeah. And look, I'm super proud of it. The team here that put that together, coming out of the pandemic, that was a heightened point of air quality was a very important thing to consumers, and we nailed it.
Yep. And in addition to that, I mean, you're very efficient when it comes to energy, waste management, and the typical things that go along with sustainability. I mean, how many hotels have I been in that says, look, that ask me, do you want my linens changed every day, or just do you want them freshened up? And giving me the option makes me feel like, okay, this hotel's on board with what's important to me. And I'm going to bet, maybe you could tell me what percentage, and I think you probably do this, what percentage of people opt for just fix it up and clean it up? You don't need to replace everything.
It's really high.
Yeah, I think so.
I forget the last number I saw, but it's a high percentage are just going for the freshen up. I think everybody has become more conscious from an environmental perspective. And I think they actually, to your point, I think they appreciate the question.
As a marketer, do you think that's important enough to make it a marketing point?
Look, I think it is. Look, I'm still fighting for brand equity in the most competitive hospitality market in the world. I've got about 20 amazing messages I can put out there. I'm trying to lean into all of them. You know, I'm kind of looking at all the pieces on the chessboard to see which ones I can use. It's definitely not a bad message.
Excellent. All right. We are down to the very last question, and everybody knows who listens to the show. This is where we get the one final nugget of wisdom. Ron, what do you have to share with us?
As far as wisdom, look, I think the reality is, I think if you're coming out to Las Vegas, if you're a professional looking to come out to Las Vegas and your dream is to be in hospitality, I think there's no better marketplace in the world. I got to learn from some of the best. I'm now hopefully one of the best that it's helping to teach the next generation. I think this is a lifestyle. It's a career. Come out here with a lot of passion, a lot of love, and really just, you know, take that first step, take that entry level job, and anything could happen. I started out 20 years ago passing out flyers on the street, and now I'm the CMO of one of the nicest, newest, largest resorts in Las Vegas.
You weren't that guy passing out those little cards, hitting your hand, or no, that wasn't you.
I was standing next to those guys passing out nightlife flyers. So
that's crazy. Wow. Well, that's a great plug for anybody in the hospitality world or people that want to get into it. And you know what? If they're really good at it already and they have a passion for it, maybe they should go to Resort World Las Vegas first to make their application. But otherwise, I hope everybody learned some secrets and ideas and thoughts about what it takes to have that hospitality mentality. Ron, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
All right, everybody, that wraps it up. Another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We will be back next week. And until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.